Well, there we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Friday, the 4th of October, the morning after the night before, after Rangers were humbled at Ibrox by Lyon in the Europa League by 4-1. To dissect the game in further detail, I'm joined by a full squad. First of all, Chris Jack. How's it going, Chris?
Not too bad, apart from the obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stevie also joins us. Great to have you on, Stevie. How's it going?
Yeah, fine, thanks, mate. I hope everybody is well this
Yep.
morning. Yeah, it's Friday at least.
It is Friday at least, yeah, absolutely. But plenty to discuss with regards Rangers last night, outclassed by Lyon on match day 2 of the Europa League. If you didn't join myself and Joshua immediately after full time, and if you missed the match last night, then you won't be rushing to watch it again or watch it at all. Rangers missing gilt-edged opportunities through James Tavernier and a Van Vossen-esque, even worse than that, Van Vossen-type miss from Vaclav Cerny in front of goal, an open goal that he managed to blaze over. Lyon go up the park and score a goal of their own through Fofana, who really impressed last night against Rangers. He was a speed demon and he had Rangers defence ripped to shreds. He netted the first. Rangers equalised shortly after. Tom Lawrence capitalising on a ball played into the box. Cyril Dessers really should score. Hits off the goalkeeper and Lawrence is quickest to react to equalise, but that equaliser didn't last for too long. A misplaced blind pass by Connor Barron, punished by Lyon. Fofana squaring it to Lacazette to double the advantage. He scored his second of the evening in first half stoppage time, a screamer from the edge of the area. And goal number 4 arrived in the second half. A ball played across the face. Cherky, who was also ripping the Rangers defence to shreds, managing to get the ball across the face. And there was Fofana nipping in front of a sleeping James Tavernier to tap home. Jack Butland was called into action numerous times to keep the scoreline down. But Chris, I don't think we can have any complaints last night. It was like, that was a step above and Rangers were blown away.
They were, and I wrote in my analysis piece that 4-1 didn't flatter Lyon. After the press conference, I'm not sure that the manager would agree with that observation. But for me, Lyon were miles and miles ahead of Rangers. I think there were a number of issues within that from a Rangers perspective that clearly contributed to their own downfall. I'm sure we'll come on to speak about a few of them over the course of the show. It was not a good night for Rangers. I thought it was a really good night for Lyon. Saw someone in the comments there mentioning Cherky. Thought he was excellent. Fofana clearly excellent. The goal, certainly the one straight into the top corner from Lacazette. Just moments of class that Rangers don't have players capable of. How many players within that Rangers side could produce that finish, could produce the type of cross that Cherky produced for the fourth one? Just having that composure in the area to beat your man, stand them up, find your teammate at the back post. Rangers made mistakes that Lyon didn't. Rangers never looked like capitalising on even the times we thought Lyon could have been there. Also, there was the chances that the manager referenced early on. Rangers didn't have the quality, didn't have the composure, didn't have it in them to take them. And I think it really just exposed all that's bad about this Rangers side, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to play a couple of snippets from Phil Clement's press conference from last night. You asked him a pressing question, Stevie, but the game itself, what did you make of it all?
I got out of it what I expected, which was a Lyon team that were miles ahead in class and ability. But I have to say that Rangers contributed to it massively, Derek. We are wide open. And this is something that we spoke about in depth, you and I, at Birmingham, if you remember. And it hasn't changed. And way before then, we started to see issues. And pre-season, anytime they come up against a team that's fairly decent, they are so easy to play against because Rangers are badly exposed. The setup and structure isn't right. So a team like Lyon, who have got quality everywhere, will always expose that. There's part of me that's thankful it was 4-1 because at 60 minutes, there was a long half an hour there. And thankfully, they took the guys off and they took their foot off the gas. But this Rangers team and this manager are very easy to play against, Derek. And that's my biggest concern. And that doesn't automatically mean before everybody starts going, Stevie wants Philip Clement out, etc. That's not the case. But there's warning signs there that we aren't heeding and that we aren't rectifying. And that's the point I tried to make to the manager. It's difficult to ask him these kind of things on a night like that, but it's important that we do. Derek, Hibs had 18 shots on target, on goal on Sunday. This isn't a one-off. You know, this is anybody that's set up to hit us. We get so many players beyond the ball and we're easily picked off, and it's troubling for me. Now, you can say that and acknowledge the fact that Lyon have an outstanding team and guys like Cherky and Fofana and that are outstanding. I get all that. But you can make it difficult. You can set your team up. You can have a balance there. He said that if he didn't attack, we would be asking questions, why didn't we create chances? But there's a balance to everything. You can have a balance, which I think we lack. And I think that with a young team and an inexperienced team, which he spoke about a lot, we're setting them up to be very easy to play against. And that's my biggest concern about last night. You can push, look, better Rangers teams than this one have faced European results like that against teams of Lyon's quality. I get that, and it's completely understandable. But you can make it difficult and be set up structurally and make teams have to work at it. Teams don't need to work to beat us. No. Cerny missed that open goal, and less than 40-odd seconds later, we were a goal down because we're so wide open to counter-attacks and teams going forward against us. And this isn't a one-off. So I can realistically sit here and say, yes, I expected it because Lyon have got that quality. But the manner of it is a repeating story that is really troubling me, Derek. And that's my biggest issue from last night. Push the result and everything to the side. My concerns are with Rangers, and I keep seeing the same problems.
Yeah. This is what the manager had to say on the scoreline last night.
1-4 is really harsh result, if you see. In the end, it's the same amount of chances that both teams have. And we had more in the first half, but it was 1-3 with halftime. And that's difference in quality, that they're more killing those moments and don't need many chances to score goals.
He's right in a way there. They don't need many chances to score goals, but I don't agree with him that 4-1 was harsh, Chris. Like Stevie said there, around when they've scored their fourth goal, I was worried that it would be a cricket score. So, I think it's one of those Rangers maybe got off lightly at 4-1. The issue I have, and a lot of fans will look, and Clement did reference the two chances before Lyon scored their opener. Even if Tavernier, even if Cerny scores that one, which is by far the easier of the two opportunities, I still see Lyon scoring a hatful of goals there, because I don't see Rangers, Lyon changing how they play. Going forward, the Rangers were exposed for Fofana and Chekri, but really causing issues down both flanks. And that's an issue that the manager has to address, isn't it? I mean, they were, as Stevie said, and you've touched on as well, too exposed, and he should have knew that before heading into this game, surely.
This Rangers side missing chances should not really be a surprise to anyone that has watched any football over the last, not just under this manager, but under previous managers. We spoke about it the other day there. They don't score enough goals, and they didn't look like scoring enough goals last night. When you then combine that with the issues that are clear in midfield and the issues that are then clear at the back, it's not exactly a recipe for success. Now, Clement could point to it and say, just going off the UEFA stats from last night, total attempts, 15 each, attempts on target, 7-5 Lyon. You could say, well, that's a fairly balanced game. 4-1 perhaps flatters Lyon, but it doesn't, because they had so many other chances. They had so many other positives moves, but as Stevie said, they just found it so easy to get through Rangers. And you don't get credit for attempts on goal. You get credit for actually scoring goals. It would have been it's interesting to, if you could go back and rewind history, if Tav scores and then Cerny scores and Rangers are 2-0 up early on, that makes it a very different night, obviously. It's a very different atmosphere. But as you said there, you still fancy Lyon to go and score the goals. Would they go on and win the game? Who knows? We'll never know. The old cliche about goals change games, I think that's right. But you can't say, well, we had chances. You have to take them. And when you don't take them, good teams will punish you. And Lyon punished Rangers, as Stevie said there, within 40, 50 seconds of Cerny missing. That phase of play summed up where Rangers are, summed up the difference on the night. And as soon as Lyon went 1-0, even when Lawrence managed to get the goal, got Rangers back into it, you knew that Lyon were going to create further chances. You thought that Rangers might do, you knew that Lyon would, and you knew that they had the quality to go and see it through. And it's, I think it was anyone that says, well, Rangers had chances. Yes, they did, but they're meaningless unless you have the quality and the composure to take them. And too many of these players just don't at that level.
The 3-1 down at half time, Stevie, you surprised that there weren't many more changes? Were you surprised at the change of Dowell for Lawrence? And what did you make of it?
I have to choose my words carefully here. Kieran Dowell's a League One footballer.
Yeah.
And it's no disrespect to him, but Clement doesn't treat him well either. He throws him in 30 minutes here or there and a game here out for 3 weeks and stuff. He's never going to get any rhythm and he's never going to become a Rangers player because he's not good enough. He's capable of taking the odd shot and things like that, but he affects absolutely nothing in the game. Why spend £4 million on a number 10 and keep him on the left when the obvious thing to do would have been to put McCausland on? And this goes a wee bit back to what I said to you the other day about the substitutions of Raskin and McCausland at halftime the other day, Derek. It made very little sense to me at the time, and I thought it was really harsh on both players. The McCausland one, again, really tricky when he brings him on the left later on in the game. Bayrami's by far our best player. Play him in the position where he was bought to be played in.
Yep.
And it's troublesome for me that he thinks that Kieran Dowell is anywhere near the levels of... Kieran Dowell came on and he gave the ball away every single time. Positionally, he kind of trots about in open space, offering very little. And this is a problem, Derek, about the midfield setup. And I'm not Joshua, I'm not Adam, I'm not Chris, who does the deep dives. And I can only tell you what I'm seeing as a supporter. And Kieran Dowell isolates himself in a 10 position. Mohamed Diamandi is an 8, is an expansive 8, so he's running about everywhere, which means he abandons his position quite a lot. And you're left with Connor Barron in a 6 position, who's trying to negotiate 3 or 4 on-running Lyon players. This was the same at Celtic when one pass went right through us. It was the same against Manchester United, Birmingham, Union in pre-season. This setup, the midfield, it's almost like it's in 3 stages and they're all miles apart. And it's easy to play through. And I remember Onana in the Man United game, being at the edge of his box and playing through balls to Hannibal. The goalkeeper to your 10 and the whole team's getting bypassed. It's not right. The setup is to me completely wide open. So you put somebody like Kieran Dowell in as number 10, it's completely ineffectual because he's not good enough to be in there in the first place. So he's just basically covering space, but he's covering space, not offering anything. So with the substitutions baffling, the substitutions have been baffling for a wee while, Derek. And it just, because of the way we are set up, to me, I have a real issue with it. And it's not, this isn't a get Clement out and Lyon are a quality side. You can say the same thing about Lyon being a quality side, but ask us to be set up properly with a structure and be solid enough that if they're going to score goals, you're going to work at you're going to make it work. Them work at it, but we didn't. We gave them all the space in the world. At times, the fullbacks were so high that it was 2-on-2 at the back if they had broken against us. And this is where it doesn't make sense. For the 4th goal, Diamandi's trying to dribble and take somebody on at the edge of the box. 2 passes later, it's across the goal and in the net. That's what I'm struggling with. The setup, the structure, the individual things that we're doing, it's costing us. And this isn't just Lyon. Go back to Sunday against Hibs. That meant Rangers midfield was wide open. And it's the same thing every time you come up against a team that are structurally okay. We're getting carved open too much, and putting substitutions on when you're putting guys on like Kieran Dowell, no disrespect, he's not good enough. You've got better players on the bench who you could have affected to play better, and he doesn't do that. So yeah, there's massive question marks over his substitutions. There has been for games, Derek, and I just think that we're just so easily exposed, and that kind of stuff highlights that you're putting a guy in there that's not affecting anything.
Yeah. Against top drawer opposition, I mean, tactically, there were questions asked last night. Substitution-wise, he did replace the captain midway through the second half. This is what he had to say when he was quizzed on that substitution in his press conference, the manager.
But he can be replaced, and Tav played already a lot of games, so not much to say about that. And Nana showed also last couple of weeks that he can be a really good replacement. And is defensively very solid. So those are normal things. Like on the other side, players were changed. That's top football, and we're gonna play more than 60 games this season. So it's impossible to play all these games. So in every good team in the world, our players change, and sometimes starting on the bench. It's normal, whoever it is.
Big call to remove the captain, Chris. My argument would be he shouldn't have started the game. We all identify Tavernier, and he's now, it saddens me to say, he's the weak link in that Rangers team when Rangers come up against quality opposition, as they did do so last night. We all predicted they would target Rangers' right-hand side, and it happened to be the case. Fofana was having a field day over there. This removal of the captain now lead to questions whether he will start against St Johnstone this coming Sunday. What do you reckon?
If it was a managing his minutes situation, do you think if the game had been one each and Rangers had a chance to go and still win it, he would have taken James Tavernier off? I don't think so. No. If it's a managing minutes situation, why is he not given the last half hour off at the weekend there, or the weekend previously, or the weekend before that, when you know that Lyon is the toughest game that you will face during a set run? And if you still have faith in James Tavernier as your captain and as your first choice at right back, as your best right back, if you think he's the best option, surely you then need him to get through 90 minutes against a tough opposition. So you then build him up for that. Last night doesn't seem to be the time to give him a rest. And the game goes away from Rangers, and the manager then thinks it's time to get him off. But if it's just a minutes thing, if it's just managing his load, then you manage his load to get him through the Lyon game because you have that faith in him. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Interesting to see what he does at the weekend now. We've spoken about this before. He said at the start of the season that Tav can't play as regularly as he has done. He has then gone against that and continued to play him in games where he didn't have to be played. He now has a big decision to make at the weekend. If Rangers really believe that Dujon Sterling is the next Rangers right back and he has earned that contract and he is meriting that long-term faith, we need to see him at right back. Teams, as you said there, Derek, teams know what James Tavernier is good at. They know what he's bad at. That's been evident for quite some time. For a lot of his Rangers career, the good has outweighed the bad. There's very little good. There's very little good from James Tavernier now. I thought when that chance fell to him earlier on, if he'd scored, it could have been another great Tav European moment. It didn't. The rest of the night didn't go well for him. And I say the manager is now in a situation. He's paid to make big decisions. If his big decision is to stick with James Tavernier, then he has to do it. But he does that knowing full well that the negatives are now outweighing the positives.
No player big in the club, Steve. We've said this numerous times. He's not been in form all season, I would say. decent enough against Malmo last week. Of course, I think that was a good team performance out there. But big call for the manager now. Are you starting James Tavernier on Sunday?
No, but I wouldn't be starting James Tavernier week in, week out either, Derek. We've had this discussion. It's been done to death. And, eventually you'll see more things like last night. How many times has James Tavernier been caught sleeping at the back post as a ball comes across?
No.
The horror, Tynecastle early door stuff has never ever left, because this is what James Tavernier does. He's actually ahead of the striker. He's in complete control. Get your body in, stop the movement. His body shape's all wrong. He's weak. He's feeble and attempting. He gets pushed off the ball as it gets put in. There's no desire there. There's no hunger. I don't think there's any belief in James Tavernier himself anymore, because he looks a guy that's completely devoid of any kind of confidence. Take him out the team. Otherwise, it will keep happening. Against Dundee a couple of weeks ago in a very easy 3-0 victory on a Saturday evening, James Tavernier was turned 3 or 4 times. And we all said it. And I think I was sitting with you, Chris, and we talked about that. That he was done, in terms of 3 or 4 times in that match. And that was a game where Dundee, weren't influencing it. But at the moment, Derek, there's better. As Chris says, Chris is right with Sterling. He's absolutely right. You cannot give a guy a long-term contract and say we need to then work on his fitness and stuff. The things that Clement's saying and doing don't make any sense. Chris is right to highlight the fact that he talked about not using Tavernier. He's ran him into the ground since the start of the season. Let's call it right. He has. He's played every single time in games where you don't need him. It's almost like there's a fear factor behind dropping him and being ballsy enough to do it. Well, it's right there in front of you now. You need to do it. You have to actually make the decision. Nana was defensively more sound in the half an hour that he had than James Tavernier's been all season. And that's the truth of it. Make the decision before it continues to hurt you, because you'll get more moments like that 4th goal for the rest of the time that James Tavernier plays, because he's not there anymore physically. And it's not a hate thing. James Tavernier's given so much in the last 9 seasons. He's played 50, 60 games consecutively. He will be remembered for that glorious form in Europa League run, 55, etc. I get all that. But you don't put that ahead of the team, which is an aging player that's not finding form. Take him out the team, Derek.
Yep. Agreed. That whole right-hand side is a problem for me, Chris. Vaclav Cerny got the nod last night. Stevie's shaking his head. He's another one. Doesn't deserve to start games for Rangers at this moment in time. He's another one that is completely devoid, it looks like, of any sort of confidence. I wouldn't be starting him on Sunday, and it's up to him to start impressing in training. He must be doing something right in training to get the nod by the manager, but I think that there's better options. I would rather have Ross McCausland. I would rather have Yanis Hadji out there than Vaclav Cerny.
He's really, really struggling right now. He is not. He's not turned out to be the player that when he first came into the club, the first couple of appearances, we thought there's definitely something there. He could be the answer to what has been a really long-standing problem for Rangers. That right-hand side has been an issue for a while. I think a couple of games at Hampden looked good. We thought there was definitely something there, but that miss last night sums up where he is. It's not been clinical enough. It's not having the quality in the right moments. And after that, I thought he brought very, very little to the game. That right hand side is very, very weak for Rangers. Lyon got a lot of joy down that side, and as we've touched on, as Stevie has outlined, Rangers were complicit in their own downfall in terms of the way the side was set up. But even if the side was set up better, there's a lack of quality within the squad. There's a lack of real nous and experience at that level. I think that's something Jack Butland touched on. I saw his TNT interview when I got back in last night, and it's having that knowledge at this level, when to make smart fouls. How do you break up the game? And Cerny should be experienced enough and has been around big clubs, has been at this level. You're looking for someone like him to really to not stand out, but to stand up. And after that miss, just kind of going into a shell, never really saw anything from him. There's also a lack of options. Matondo's out, Cortez is out. I remain to be convinced. I've got a lot of convincing to be done that either of them are viable, long-term, solid options for Rangers either. But you come back to a side that's been set up with a manager that wants to play with wingers and natural pace and natural width. The options just aren't there. But the problem then comes back to Clement's door. The options are the ones that he's brought to the club, and that's where it's another area that he can then be criticised on and questioned on.
I'm just
Derek, do you know the other issue that Cerny's got now? I don't know if anyone's noticed. Cerny's starting to bite back at the fans because he knows that we're seeing a player that's not where he should be. I like the look of him. I'm not going to lie. I said it when he first came in. And I said at the time whether or not it's just because he's naturally right-sided and we really want somebody out there. We haven't had somebody out there for a long time and we wanted them to succeed. But Chris is right. Like, his performance levels are miles away from, even on the ball. When he's on the ball, it's not just an end product. It's like the simple stuff, like the passing and the positioning. He's not tracking back. He's not helping. He looks himself like he's shrinking into himself because he knows that the fans are getting on his back. He bit back on Sunday. He bit last night after his miss. He blocked a kind of fullback and he was charging over at the Sandy Jardine front, kind of waving his hands, looking for a response. He knows that we're seeing a guy that's not playing well, and he knows that we're now already making judgment on him because he's not performing. And you're right, like Chris is right, there's not options there. But again, are you doing it Dujon Sterling any real favours putting him on at right wing forward when he's your right back? So, I'm with you as well. I mean, I think at this moment in time, he needs to come out the team. Ross McCausland will at least give you that effort tracking back. Will he give you the same output? I'm not sure. Does he have the same quality levels? I'm not sure. But that doesn't really matter if Cerny's not showing it anyway. Mm-hmm. So you have got a question on that right-hand side. The fullback one, I think I've answered quite emphatically, but Cerny's just as big an issue as the other side as well. And ironically as well, on the left, we actually look not bad. For all Yefty's a bit of a steam train down there. Needs to work on his final ball, yeah. But, you get a young, raw, inexperienced fullback, that's going to happen. But at least he's giving you something. But it's like, it's typical Rangers, isn't it? Just when you might have something okay, like the rest of the team, fall to the wayside. So, it's a difficult one on the left, but on the right, it's not really difficult, Derek. You need to change it quickly.
Yeah, big thanks to Stephen, who's kindly donated to the channel. He says, hit that like button, Barrett and Barretts. That's very kind of you, Stephen. Thank you for that. I noticed, it's almost a year since Clement's been in charge, Chris. I think the 15th of October, if I'm not mistaken, when he took over. I've seen a lot of supporters last night saying, have the team improved from when he took over last year? Now, we all know what happened last season. Got the team into a brilliant position when they looked very much out of the title race before blowing it in the business end of the campaign. But almost a year in the job, what if you had to score him out of 10? What are you doing?
It's not a big number, unfortunately for him. It's not a number that gets above 6. And normally when you're doing your man-by-man ratings, you start at 6 and you work your way up and down from there. If someone has a fairly average 90 minutes, doesn't do very much, it's a 6. If they absolutely stink the place out, they go down to a 4. And I think Clement for me, he doesn't get any higher than that. There are a number of issues that we've not seen being rectified. And he sat in the blue room in that first press conference and said he wanted to have the best technical, physical, tactical and mental side in Scotland. I would argue he's as far away from achieving that now as he was when he sat alongside James Bisgrove that day. And for Rangers, that's ultimately not good enough. He does still have the backing of the board. That point has been reinforced. That point was reinforced in black and white in the summer when he signed his new contract. unless things turn considerably worse over the coming weeks, then I don't see anything changing in terms of his position. But you could see it changing in terms of the mood of the fans. I think Stevie summed it up really well over the last half hour. His concerns will be shared by not just some fans, not just a percentage. I think his concerns will be shared by a large majority of the Rangers fans. And ultimately, when you win or when you lose the Rangers fans, it doesn't matter how much support you have in the boardroom. They may be the board and directors may be the ones that give you the contract and can hire and fire you, but the Rangers fans are the ones that you have to keep to really keep with you. And I think Clement is now approaching a really, really defining time. You look at the games coming up. I said back at Ibrox at the weekend. If it doesn't go well, you know what the reaction will be in that first 20 minutes or so. You've got the European games coming up as well. Now Rangers have to try and take a bit of momentum from them. Need to try and get a couple of results in terms of Europa League now. Game against Aberdeen at the end of the month up at Pittodrie. I think it's a Wednesday night, 8 o'clock kickoff. Aberdeen in really good form.
Yep.
Started the season really impressively. Already a handful of points ahead of Rangers. That could be a very, very telling and significant night in the Rangers' career of Philippe Clement.
We need to start seeing something, Stevie, and I know that it's hard to judge against Lyon because they are a step above. They've got quality players that Rangers can only dream of, but the club are 5 points behind. As Chris says, I think that game at Pittodrie is huge. Aberdeen have started off like a steam train. Where are you with Philippe Clement at this moment in
time? I think 6 is probably about fair. In terms of what you asked for a minute ago, where I am with Philippe Clement is I really want him to do well. And I'm not anti-Philippe Clement. I'm not ready to throw in the towel. But there needs to be a change, Derek, in set-up and in the way we're going about things. I think that's my biggest issue. So that's the first thing. Individually, signings and things you can argue because one week we look good, other times we don't. And that's what happens when you have such a massive restructure. And we did. You have to have context for that. You know, he basically more or less, James Tavernier less, ripped it all up in the summer. So, you know, there is context to that. Lyon are a fairly formidable, I would say, great side. Guys like Fofana, Cherki, etc., Lacazette are all top European players. You know, so there's your context. But at the same time, Derek, it's not unreasonable, in my opinion, to expect them to be better set up, more difficult to beat, stop making the same mistakes that we're making consistently. Missing chances isn't down to Philippe Clement. He cannot affect that, what goes on the pitch. But structurally and things like that, he can make us better. And that's my biggest issue.
Yeah.
He cannot turn Cyril Dessers into the player that we want him to be, but he can try and get the best out of him, which I think he's fairly managed to do. He can... But it contradicts himself when he isn't brave enough to make decisions around certain personnel, James Tavernier being one. And that structural thing and those decisions, substitutions and things are the things that I'm questioning. But it doesn't automatically mean that we're anti-Philippe Clement or we want him changed and stuff. When does this cycle end? You know, it's going to take some windows, I get that. But in that time, we need to see something. And Chris is right, and the comment right that was put up there. If we go 8 behind Aberdeen, forget about Celtic for a moment. If we go 8 behind Aberdeen, that's a problem, you know, at that early stage. And, you know, we go up there against a guy that's fairly competent in Jimmy Phelan, and he's done well so far. You know, Aberdeen will at some point hit the rails and have some sticky results and stuff like that. And can their squad really manage it and things? We'll see. I'm not really sitting here overly troubled 6 games in, but it's a reaction you'll get if you go behind that amount because the fans will very quickly. It'll go from being red flags and people being troubled in what they're saying to people going, nah, this isn't working. And that's life at Rangers. You know, you're living by the next result. You know, so you go and beat St Johnstone 3-0 on Sunday night isn't going to answer any of the questions that are being answered now, because Philip Clement said last night in his press conference to me that Lyon were a great football side and blah, 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 but I don't give him any credit for getting clean sheets against St Johnstone and Ross County, etc. And it contradicts itself, because St Johnstone and Ross County are facing the same disparity when they face us that we face when we're facing Lyon. But he wants credit for those clean sheets. We give him credit for those clean sheets, but I'm sorry, it's expected. It's not expected that when Hibs come to Ibrox on Saturday, they get 18 attempts on goal, 11 wins in 28. These are all stats that you can give us stats that we had certain amounts of shots on goal and everything else. The real stats are sitting right in front of you. That since that Motherwell game in February, this team has went rapidly backwards. The whole setup, everything has looked fairly dodgy. We look like we are easily got at all over this club, and that's something that massively needs to change, Derek, and quickly. So Philip Clement, to me, is on a real crossroads in his Rangers career. He needs to go on a solid run where results and performances are starting to collate with each other, and they're not at the moment in time. You can beat Ross County, Dundee United, St Johnstone, Hibs, and get clean sheets and everything else, but as soon as you come up against somebody semi-decent, then that's when it becomes a problem. And listen, Malmo last week was fantastic. It really was. But the issue is, and what people are saying is, that's an anomaly of a season so far in terms of performance-wise. Unless he fixes it to the point where those results are becoming the normality, and then the odd one, like last night, or a defeat or whatever, and a difficult away game comes, then fine, because it is a rebuild and you're going to expect that. Yeah. But what you don't expect, Derek, is 1 in 10 being a good performance, or 1 in 10 being acceptable levels, 1 in 10 being we got that right. There's too many question marks at the moment for Philippe Clement in the eyes of the support not to be at least looking over his shoulder slightly at what's going on. And he should be, because it's not overall, it's not going in the right way that we really need or want it to go. And yes, it's a big rebuild. Yes, he needs windows. I get that. But being so easy to play against is really concerning for me. And that's my biggest issue at the moment.
Yep, you're not the only one that is concerned by that, Stevie. Big thanks to Callum, who's donated to the channel, and he says, only good thing about Rangers at the moment is this channel, lads. Well, thank you very much, buddy. But yeah.
That shows you how bad it is, Derek, if we're the shining light, the three of us. So.
Absolutely, dearie me. Right, that'll do us there. Don't think it's a press conference today, lads, is there? I think it's...
No, thankfully there's not. No.
So yeah, Sunday, Rangers back in action. Cannot wait for that one at 8 p.m. on a Sunday, which is just bonkers stuff. And of course, I know many of you get the underground to the game. That's off, I think, Sunday evening as well. So it's just going to be carnage. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah. If you're heading to the game, then hopefully you have a good time. And I'm sure Rangers will get back on the horse. Or, I mean, they've got Simo Valakari in there now. They've just appointed him as new manager. I think he's quite a character, and I think he'll get a tune out of that St Johnstone team. Let's hope that it doesn't start this coming Sunday. But yeah, plenty to ponder for the manager, and certainly a lot of questions that the fans are asking of this Rangers team at this moment in time. Right, that'll do us there. Big thanks to Chris and to Stevie as ever. Thank you to you all for tuning into the show as well. And yeah, we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.